Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode with me, Shashank Udappa. And boss, what is happening with the market? Just now, Nifty was going to break its channel and do really well. But then today, one tweet came out from Mr. Donald Trump that affected all the pharmaceutical companies in India, and most of them fell down quite a bit. Now, you know why I'm not too worried about it? And I even made a reel on it instantly about it that's saying nothing is going to happen. Relax. In fact, you should take an advantage today because this was a buy on dip strategy and the advantage is not gone as well. But obviously, I'm here to explain and educate everything. So let me quickly educate you on what has happened, what is the reaction, and what is the solution to this. And I'll show you with stock specific answers as well. So stay tuned because we're going to slightly go deeper into this, but it's going to be fun. Now, basically, what did the problem first happen? Right? And I even put a tweet on this saying this is not going to create a big issue. But basically, Donald Trump said that effective 1st August 2026, all generic drugs being bought into the United States will have zero tariff, 0% tariff. Now, generic drugs means what? For example, companies like Sun Pharma, they will make drugs that are very expensive in the US market. They make a generic version of it and sell it for cheaper rates in the US market. Obviously, we make a lot of money because we put in all the processes. And once the patent is over, we make that drug and sell it in the US market, right? Now, what they're saying, what Donald Trump basically said is after a 2-year period of time, the tariff will become 100% for a 1-year period and then 200% after that. That basically means in 2028, it will become 100% and 2029 it will become 200%. So why they're doing this is they're saying because all these guys are like Sun Pharma, there are many players, right, in India, in China, many players who are exporting generic drugs and flooding the market at cheap rate. Now, what he's saying is we want all of these guys to come build in America, create jobs in America and build manufacturing plants over here and start selling here itself, right? And that is basically what is it. This policy on branded patented drugs has been successful and this is something that they want to do. And they're saying that with penalty to those companies that decide not to build a plant and equipment within the stated given period of time. Now, let's come to dissecting this information. Now, first of all, if this happens, who loses? The people who actually lose are the citizens of United States because now they're paying for drugs that are cheap because we are manufacturing in India and selling outside. But if let's say a company like Sun Pharma has to go and manufacture over there, it is going to become very expensive for them to move forward. And that cost, obviously Sun Pharma is not going to absorb. They're going to pass that cost on to the consumers and the consumers will have to pay a lot of money. Number one. Number two, I believe that this is a big scare tactic. Why do I say it's a big scare tactic? Because of two reasons. Number one, even if a new company, let's say Sun Pharma or any other company wants to go there and build a manufacturing plant, it will take 2 to 3 years to build the manufacturing plant, number one. Number two, even if they build the manufacturing plant, they then have to get FDA approval, US FDA approval on that plant, which will again take a few more years. So the entire cycle for setting up a US facility is going to take 7 years. So obviously this and that does not match. Now, what he might want is basically to have companies come and acquire US companies outright and then build in US as well. So that gives a good revenue for the US companies. But also please understand the timeline. It's saying after 2 years, which is 2028, right? Now, nothing is going to happen till 2028. It's going to be 0% tariff. That means it should be a good sign for the pharmaceutical company. But people have started taking 2-year forward estimation and all the pharmaceutical companies fell because of that, giving us a beautiful mispriced opportunity in the market. And around 2029, that is when Donald Trump's election season comes in. And if he doesn't come back, then this might be even scrapped. So this was just fear tactics and sadly targeted very well against India. And if you look at our pharma index, in the morning time, it actually fell down quite a bit, as you can see here. And then we had a slow recovery, but not a very fast recovery. We still had a good fall happening at this point, right? And if you look at Nifty, Nifty took a big hit today. Let me show you. Nifty took a big hit today because Nifty is currently range bound from a very long period of time. And now Nifty took a big hit because of this. And obviously FIs are going to get more scared because they want to exit the large cap companies, and many pharmaceutical companies are there in the large cap zone as well. But we will go into those companies and what they're doing because I find this as a mispriced opportunity going forward, right? In fact, pharmaceutical companies enjoy US dollar pricing. And if you look at INR, which is sad for us, it has gone to 96.5. So we're back to where we started. And it's gone back to 96.5, which means the pharmaceutical companies are going to enjoy this going forward, right? But let's understand some stats also. Indian pharmaceutical companies have exported approximately $9.7 billion of goods just in FY25, right? And 38% of India's total global pharma exports are 25.8 billion. Now, I went and looked at another report over here, and here it very clearly said that the industry of Indian exports, so India is the largest provider of generic drugs globally and is renowned for its affordable vaccines at high quality medicine. So we are the biggest. So this tariff news that you saw was actually a direct hit to India. And boss, we're already having a lot of problems in India, right? Every department we're having problems. This has added into it. And Indian pharmaceutical sector was the only sector that was in momentum, right? If you see the Nifty Pharma sector, right? It was the only sector that was in very good momentum, and this was a way to destroy that momentum. And over here, it has also said that this industry is growing at 9.43% and it contributes to almost 1.72% of India's GDP. Now, IT services obviously has a very big factor in India's GDP, but pharma exports are also a big factor for India's GDP. And this was a good hit for our GDP, because if our GDP number goes down, then again we will get re-rated in the global economy. Our rating will go down, our trillion-dollar economy will go slower, and we're already having slow movement in Nifty, so this can become even slower. And that is basically what has created the problem, right? And that is why you saw that Nifty Pharma actually took a beating today and the whole industry fell. But now let's talk about some issues here. First of all, you and me both understand that Nifty Pharma fell. Fair enough. My question is, why did the hospital stocks fall today? That was confusing even for me, because if I look at the hospital sector right now, and if I look at the hospital stocks, which have nothing to do with the entire index, they actually fell down. Now, the most funny part is, if you look at a company called Aster DM, right? If you look at Aster DM, it is in the hospital space, right? Hospital space has nothing to do with the entire pharmaceutical space, but we saw a massive fall right in the morning in this sector, and that created again a very beautiful mispriced opportunity, and in fact, it ended lower as well. If you look at Apollo Hospitals, right, the next one, if you look at Apollo Hospitals, it barely closed positive today, and in the morning it took a massive beating and fell down as well. Now, if you look at the pharmaceutical companies, I understand, but if you look at the healthcare companies, they have zero tariff exposure. These companies have zero tariff exposure. So that became a very good opportunity in the morning to buy, and some of them are still down. So you should look at some companies as well. Now, coming to pharmaceutical sector, right? The whole sector fell down. But pharmaceutical sector is not just one thing. There are many things in pharmaceutical sector, and there are many segments. For example, there are some companies that only focus on domestic formulations, right? Now, let me give you an example. Companies like Torrent, Mankind, Alchem, JB Chem, and Eris Life Sciences, they are focusing on domestic formulations, not international formulations, right? But they also fell 3-4% in the whole day. If you look at JB Pharma Chem, which has actually been falling a lot, JB Chem has actually 58% of revenue coming only from domestic, and they're actually doing a merger with Torrent Pharmaceuticals. So that created basically a very good mismatch again in today's market, and most of the companies are still down. Then we have the CDMO companies. Now, CDMO companies, we have companies like Laurus Labs. If you look at Laurus Labs today, it is down 0.97, but in the day, if you go down, in the day, it actually fell down and then kind of recovered from that point. So if I show you from the chart perspective, you'll get a much clearer idea. Look at this. So this is Laurus Labs. So Laurus Labs has nothing to do with this because it is in the CDMO space. You look at Divis, one of the largest players in India. Even they fell down, took recovery, and then came back up today. So obviously the market slowly realized that this impact is not going to happen, and this is going to be better going long term, right? Because these guys, CDMO companies, they basically manufacture for the innovators of the world, right? So they basically have no problem with the drug import ban that is happening because they manufacture for the global giants in the world, right? And if you look at Laurus, the CDMO revenue has now become 28% of the total revenue, and this is growing at 48% year on year. And Laurus is there in both our Fluid C and Fluid Q baskets, right? So this is something that we are again seeing off as an opportunity. Then you have the innovator companies, right? Which is our beloved Sun Pharma. Now, if you look at Sun Pharma's specialty portfolio, they have things like Winlevi, Odosmo, and now they have also done a massive acquisition in the US called Oragnon, right? I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Sun Pharma recently did a huge deal, $1 billion deal in the US, right? And let me show you something. If I actually show you this, Sun Pharma's Oragnon deal set to reshape biosimilars competitive landscape in the US, and this is a massive big deal that they had to do. They had to basically pay $11 billion for this deal, and this is a US company. So obviously there is some benefit for these companies, but yeah, let's see what happens in the future, right? So that is one. Then we have something called specialty API companies, segment 4. Over here we have companies like Divis and again Solara. Now if you look at Solara fell like there is no tomorrow, right? If you look at Solara, it fell down at 4% fall in the entire day. So Solara fell a lot. And again, Divis supplies API to major US pharmaceutical innovators, and those innovator clients are tariff exempt, so nothing happens to them. So these guys are not generic players, but the pharmaceutical industry hit them also from this news. So because not everyone knows everything, I'm pretty sure you also didn't know all of these things, right? We do research internally, so we know as soon as it fell, we started averaging internally in our picks as well. And then you actually have the risky players. Now let me talk about who is really at risk. Yes, over here you have companies like Granules. Okay, Granules is really at risk, went down 2.7%, and Granules also was in momentum. So Granule has a problem. Aurobindo Pharma is also a pure play generic person. If you look at Gland Pharma is also pure play generic, and then we have Glenmark also in the same space. So these are the 4 companies that were actually supposed to go down more because they were the companies that were actually creating an issue. Now what I'm going to do is, now you know that these companies are there, I'm going to show you a table on the screen where I will show you what is the percentage of US revenue of these companies who are the generic companies. I'm only going to compare the generic companies. I'm going to tell you what is the percentage of US, so you will know who's going to get hit and where the risk is high. So if you look at this table, you can see Granules India sits at 70 to 74% of the US revenue. Number one, very big problem. And the risk level is critical. If you look at Gland Pharma is sitting at 53% US revenue. Again, a big problem. Aurobindo, 49% of the revenue is US, and Dr. Reddy, 45%. Glenmark still lower at 25%. Sun Pharma, 33%. Cipla, 25%. And Lupin, 25%. And in fact, Granules management also flagged this and said that 20 to 25% cost increase from tariff. If the tariff materializes, they will have a cost increase of 20 to 25%, and that definitely will become a problem. And they also said that it will become extremely difficult for us to pass on this price to the consumer because the competition is already so heavy in the US, right? So these are the biggest problems that are currently being faced there, and I basically told you the segments. Now comes the solution. Till now we understood the problems, we understood why, we understood what happened. Now let's look at the solution of everything. Now, if you really think about it, when he teased it last time, all the Indian companies realized that we should have some US presence. And that is why most of the US companies, most of the Indian companies already started building stuff in US, right? Indian pharmaceuticals started investing in US manufacturing from a few years ago itself. Now, again, I'm going to show you a nice table on the screen. Have a look at this. If you look at Aurobindo Pharma, they basically have a US facility called East Windsor in New Jersey, 820,000 square feet campus, and the new 170,000 facility ribbon cut September 2025 for OTC, over the counter, and injectable manufacturing. So Aurobindo already has a company there. So what they will do usually in the future is they will still manufacture bulk of the generics here. They will sell this generic to their parent company, let's say in US, and from there they will pass on the cost. They will do maybe some manufacturing here, some manufacturing there. So that is basically how they will do. If you look at Aurobindo, they have one more in North Carolina, 40,000 square feet, and a pilot plant for CGMP manufacturing for specialty products. You look at Lupin has a plant in Coral Springs, Florida, $250 million investment, 1,200 jobs created. This is exactly what Trump wants, and this is exactly what he's getting as well. If you look at Sun Pharma, Organon acquisition, which I just told you, $11.75 billion deal, and that is going to reshape a lot of things in US, right? If you look at Dr. Reddy, they have a plant, manufacturing facility already operational, API manufacturing facility already operational in Middleburg, New York. So that is again going to be there. Now, basically what's happening is that these companies are building US facilities to only get exemptions. That today Trump is saying this, but tomorrow someone else can come and talk about this, and it really affects the revenue of all these companies. And if that happens, it creates a massive problem. So that is one problem, right? Now coming to solution number 2, okay? Most of the companies today, the pharmaceutical companies, have realized that being in this generic drug business, which is like a commodity business, is not going to make us a lot of money. So a lot of generic companies have started to shift their focus from generic medicine, and now they have started shifting to complex generics, which is little more difficult to make, specialty medicines, and also biosimilars, which is what US acquisition that happened with Sun Pharma was for biosimilars. So that is now playing into this entire ecosystem. And if you look at the plain vanilla generics, for example, there are companies that make ibuprofen tablets, paracetamol tablets. You have IOL Chemicals doing paracetamol and ibuprofen, right? So they're high volume, but they have zero pricing power and anyone can disrupt them. So those guys are going away. What is complex generics? They are inhalers, injectables like Kaplan Point, long-acting formulations, dermatology, right? So a lot of companies are getting into that. Biosimilars, this is a growing market, a $300 billion market as of today, and India is planning to position to take this as well. If you look at Gland Pharma, which is actually taking a hit of this, they are now shifting towards injectables, complex injectables, not even normal injectables, and they are now going towards the GLP-1 manufacturing for pen manufacturing and cartridge manufacturing. So they are going there as well. So a lot of companies now have started building this solution there, right? So again, I told you that if you know what you're looking at, the market becomes very beautiful. A lot of people don't know this. Hence, you're watching this video, so I hope you guys have got some knowledge on this as well, right? Solution number 3, and why I feel this is just a big correction. I feel that US cannot afford to replace Indian generic overnight. I told you this, right? 90% of all generic prescriptions in the US are imported. That means someone is giving it to them. So they can't just suddenly get up and say, let's replace everything. Second, Indian generic companies provided 47% of generic prescriptions filled in the US as of 2022 in all the pharmacies in US. Indian companies basically made 47%, and Americans saved $219 billion because of India and almost $1.3 trillion over the past decade. Now, do you really want to disrupt a $1.3 trillion savings? And this is going to be passed on to the customers. So the customer is going to take a massive hit as well, right? So as I said, it's going to be a loss. If you look at, there was a quote by Vishal Manchanda of Systematic Institutional Equities, because we read all of these documents. He said that this move is going to be inflationary to the US as they don't have the requisite manufacturing infrastructure in-house to replace the scale of supply that India does. And if the tariff goes through, US drug prices will rise, generic drugs will go from 0 to 15% of the total drug spend, even maybe 20%. So all this will start creating a massive issue into the entire ecosystem, right? And Dilip Sanghvi from Sun Pharma clearly came out and gave a statement today and said, if the tariffs are imposed, we will pass on everything to the customers, we will not take the hit. So now you see, US, if this goes through, US citizens will pay more, not the Indian companies, right? But the fall happened in Indian companies and it took a massive hit on the Nifty today as well. Now, another thing that we will look at, which we're also aiming and internally also we're tracking, is that India-US bilateral negotiations are still going on. What if they give an exemption to us? And if you look at IPA, the IPA represents Sun Pharma, Dr. Reddy's, Cipla, Zydus, and even local units. And they are all lobbying for the same thing, saying keep India away, and maybe put tariff on the other countries, right? So India definitely has a leverage here, and we already have some manufacturing plants in the US. So maybe we might get some exemption on those lines, right? So that is what I'm saying. But coming to the final point and my conclusion of this video is that I believe this is a buy on dip opportunity. I believe that it has fallen too much for no reason. And I believe that even if it falls more, it is a great opportunity. But where is the real risk over here? The real risk is if tomorrow Trump comes and says that this is not just for normal generics, we will start putting tariff on complex generics. We will start putting tariff on injectables. That is where the problem comes into the picture. Right now, there is no problem over there. But if you see companies like Kaplan Point that does injectables in US and South America, they got affected a lot as well, and they do injectables mainly. So again, for me, it's a beautiful opportunity because I get it at a lower price to book and everything, lower P ratio, lower price to sales. But this is what is happening. So even though Indian companies are now shifting away from generics, so the hit is not going to be too much, a lot of companies are now going to complex generics. So hopefully that Trump doesn't put a tariff on complex generics that will affect the entire ecosystem. But if you really think about the macro picture of what's happening, India is definitely, getting attacked from all sides, both internally and both externally. Now, a lot of people keep saying that why are the FIs selling? Please understand how India is looking from an FII standpoint. Trump is putting tariff on our key stuff. Our IT industry is failing. Our banking results are horrible. right? Yes, the mid cap and the small cap are the only saviors of the Indian economy, and that is why the FIs don't want to come here. You add internal turmoil and unrest over here, the possibility of a regime change in 2029, and these are some reasons why the FIs don't want to invest in India, and rightly so. And that is why you see INR has also gone to 96 right now. India tried solving this with the FCNR deposits, where NRIs can deposit US currency here and they would get a lot of interest on it. That also did not do really well because there is absolutely zero interest today in India. But please understand, all these are narratives. There will be good times, there will be bad times, and there will be good times again, right? So now we had good times in 2021, we have bad times now, but we will definitely have good times again. So don't worry about it, but be educated, get some knowledge as I have shown you here. What I'm going to do is I have a document prepared as well, as you can see here, document created by my entire team. I will share this document as well in the comment for you guys, so you guys go read it aram se whenever you want. Okay, thank you guys. This is me, Shashank Godappa, signing off. Take care. See you. Bye bye. And by the way, if you like this video, please click on the subscribe button, because we are trying to go a little more deeper and make good research for all of you guys. So if this helped you in any way, please thank us by just subscribing to this channel. Thank you guys. Take care. See you. Bye bye.